Hi and welcome back. So in today's video we'll be discussing a topic that has been requested by Chetan from UK, and Chetan wanted to know about email etiquette and how to write emails. So that's what we'll be discussing in today's video, and I'll be showing you different parts of an email and what to do and what not to do. So let's start. So before you send an email, you should know why you're writing the email and what the body of the email should be. Also, you should know what is it that the reader wants to know and not what you want to say. So you have to write it from the perspective of what the reader wants to know, and also to know what relationship you have with the reader. Are you writing to somebody who's on the same level as you or somebody above you, and what the tone of the email should be. Apart from this, you also have to know whether you need to write an email at all, or can you have the conversation on the phone or face to face. A lot of people fall in the trap of playing email in the office. So instead of just getting up from your seat and just walking over to the next station and talking to the person face to face, or making a really quick call of 30 seconds where you quickly want to check something, or to chat with somebody using the office messenger, people send emails and the other person sends a reply, then you send an email, then he sends a reply. It's unnecessary when there are other modes of communication. Now let's come to the subject of the email. Many times the subject of the email is as important as the content of the email, because the subject of your email decides whether the reader will even open your email or not. So never send an email without filling the subject line of the email. The subject line is sort of like the headline of a news article. Just like when you pick up the newspaper and you see a headline, you kind of decide whether you want to read the article or not. The same kind of applies to emails, where the subject of the email tells the reader whether it's important enough for them to read the email or not. So make sure that your subject is valid, it is relevant, and it is appropriate as per the email. However, make sure that the subject line is really concise and you're only using keywords in the subject line and not full sentences. You also don't have to use words like regarding, in reference with, about, etc. You can only write the keywords in the subject line. And one last tip about subject line is that it should always be neutral. For example, if you're sending an email to somebody disclosing the result of something, for example, if somebody's failed an assessment or passed it, please don't write in the subject line that assessment failed. Just write status of the assessment or result of the assessment. Now let's talk about the structure of an email. So when you look at an email, you can basically divide it into three parts. The first part would be the opening of the email, then it would be the body of the email, and then the closing of the email. In the opening of the email, generally you should start with the salutation along with the reference sentence. We'll come to that in a bit. Then you write the body of the email, or what the email is about. So whatever it is that you want to convey within the email, you would write it in the content of the email or the body of the email. And once you've written that, you close the email by giving like action items, for example, or whatever you want to convey in the end. You kind of repeat that and then you sign off and close the email. When you're starting an email, try and avoid using time-specific greetings like good morning or good afternoon, because you never know what time the reader will open the email. So they could open it a day after you send it, or 2 days or 3 days, so you never know what time they would open it. So try not to use time-specific greeting. Also, if you want to open the email sort of casually, then you can just use something like hi and their first name, like the example says here, hi Sam. And if you want to be more formal, then you can say dear Mr. and their last name. So let's say his name is Sam Smith, you would say dear Mr. Smith. That is an acceptable way of formally opening an email. So now let's discuss the opening reference sentences that I was talking about earlier. So when you start an email, you can't directly jump into the body of the email or start like, "Hi Sam, send me the brochure," something like that. So what you can do is you can warm up to the email or warm up to the content of the email by using a reference sentence. For example, let's say Sam has asked you for a brochure, then you can say something like, "Hi Sam, this is in reference with the brochure that you had requested for. Please find it attached to this email." So that way you are transitioning into the email rather than jumping into it. And I've already compiled a list of reference sentences that you can choose from, so you can refer to this slide and choose whichever reference sentence suits your email the best. Now let's come to the body of the email. So to write the body of the email, we can follow the 7 C's of communication, which are to be clear. So make sure that there is no ambiguity in the email and that the message of your email is absolutely clear. It should also be concise. You should not start writing the story of your life within the email. There's actually a rule which is a one screen rule, which means that when somebody opens your email, they shouldn't have to scroll up and down to read your email, and it should fit within one screen of their laptop or phone or whatever device they are using. The shorter the email, the better it is. Then your email should be concrete, which means that the message should be very clear and strong, and again not being ambiguous. It should be correct in terms of sentence construction and grammar, punctuation, etc. It should be coherent, so easy to read. It should have the complete message, and the tone of the email should be polite and courteous. So you cannot be too straightforward. You have to maintain a sense of formality. So another important aspect of the email is the formatting of the email, and the formatting should be such that it looks really professional and not like a child has written the email and made it colorful or included different formats in the email. Again, the simpler it is, the better it will look. So try to keep the format really simple. Use simple fonts like Arial or Calibri or Times Roman. You can keep the font size standard throughout the email. The font size should not change too much. There shouldn't be too much of color in the email. Sticking to black or blue is generally the standard, and also don't go overboard with the bold option or to highlight something or to underline something. This is a really good example on the screen of what not to do and not to mix up too many formats or too many differences in the email. Try to keep it really simple. Make sure that when you're writing an email, it's not a giant block of content, and the body of the email should be broken up into paragraphs. So each paragraph should be 3 to 4 sentences. So when you feel like you've discussed something on the email and you've crossed 4 sentences, then you should maybe change the paragraph, and that would help you in formatting the email. And also each paragraph should have an idea, so make the email so concise that each paragraph has an idea, and when you're talking about something else, you can change the paragraph. Another tip that I can share is to try and use passive voice in emails, because it just sounds more professional when your sentences are more fact-based rather than based on who it's about. So rather than saying, for example, that I could not send you the report yesterday, you can write it in passive form and say the report could not be sent yesterday because of so and so reason. It just makes the email sound more professional. Here are some more examples of professional verbiage. So instead of saying so, you can say therefore, however, since. So you can look at this list and kind of replace the more casual words with professional words listed here. And now we've come to the closing of the email. If the email is very long, you can summarize the email in the end, or you can write a 1-sentence gist of the email. If there are any action items, if there's something that you want the reader to do, for example, you can write in the end that I look forward to receiving the brochure from you, or kindly send the report to me, or kindly send me the attendance. You can mention the action item towards the end of the email, and then you end the email pleasantly by writing something like thank you or warm regards, and then you sign off with your name, your designation, and your organization's name. So So just like opening reference sentences, I have also mentioned some closing reference sentences here. Again, depending on the email and what the content is like, you can choose a reference sentence from this list and apply it to the email that you're writing. Now let's review our email. So have I written what I wanted to say correctly? Have I written it from the perspective of the reader? Is the formatting correct, and is my email well organized? Have I written it concisely in short sentences? Have I used bullet points or numberings or tables in the form of listings? And have I clearly stated what are the action items that the reader has to follow? Do they need to send me something, or do they need to do something? Have I stated it correctly? And is my email pleasant in terms of the tone and the language? Does it sound professional and polite or not? All these points need to be checked before I send the email. So those were some points that you can keep in mind when writing an email. And of course, if you also have a topic that you would like me to cover, you can let me know. And also let me know what you thought about this video by commenting below. And if you liked this video, then you can of course like it, and you can share it with your friends and your colleagues and help them also learn some tips about writing emails. So that is it for this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.